Hello there, welcome back to Wargroove. We're continuing our battles against Heavensong for some reason. A new commander has showed up to take command of their forces. It's now the son of the Empress of Heavensong. Apparently he is an acquaintance of Emeric, and while we do seem to have the opportunity to explain our real purpose for being here, we all just seem to agree that we should have a battle instead. So not the most productive thing for winning the overall war, we're just going to fight each other. But maybe it will prove a point or something. I think it's just for old time's sake, that's the actual reason. Anyway, in this battle, there are two special units up there in the corner. These are our equivalent of the Ent things we saw the tree people using, our golem units. And all we have to do is send Emeric up there and we'll get them for free. So not wasting any time, I spent all of our initial money on a wagon so I can just transport him up there first thing. And indeed, once we get close to them, they appear on our side. That's a very expensive couple of units we've been given for free there, so that's a nice early advantage. Now these two guys can just plow over to the right into the advancing enemy. Once an archer and a pikeman set up at the front, they're in trouble. This guy is basically a walking castle tower of some kind, and with a single slap he dispatches that unit of archers, and the pikes won't do much better. These units are a bit curious in that they do critical damage when they're below 40% health, which also reduces their damage, so whether it increases your damage overall to try and use them when they're half dead, not quite sure, but we'll try and keep them alive, just because that seems like the better option. So here we go in the next turn, just ploughing into the next wave of enemies. This ballista tried to shoot one of the golems, but didn't do very much, and slap. There we go. A whole load of enemy value has been taken out by our free units. We're gaining a nice economic advantage. Here's a case where we can't actually get the one-hit kill against a strong unit like knights, but we can mostly dispose of them now they're on low health. They won't be any trouble. On this northern road, Emeric's going to stop a couple of units from sneaking around behind us. He's easily enough to deal with that situation. There's also a dog sneaking around in our base, but I've got a couple of sword units down there that should eventually bring it down. It can't defeat our villages on its own, so that's all fine. As for the strategy on this map, you can see it's kind of an inverse U shape, an N shape I guess that would be, and the enemy base is kind of close to our base as a result, so I'm just going to spam some flying units and fly along the bottom edge of the map. Then we'll have units in the enemy base quite soon, while at the top of the map we just have to fight the enemy and generally distract them. It doesn't necessarily matter if we defeat them here, just need to keep drawing units away from their stronghold at the bottom of the map. Here I used a golem to take out the unit standing in the entrance to the enemy base, so now we've got the enemy base kind of under siege. They'll have to go through that golem to escape through that entrance at least. And this gives us pretty good control over the entire left-hand side of the map. We're going to have an economic advantage as well now. There's still something going on up here. Emeric's struggling to kill these enemies because they're just running away. I think they're trying to go for the villages in the far left or something, but it doesn't really matter. A while later the enemy tried to get out of their base and we said nope, we can just slap a golem in there. And every time the golems get damaged I just pull them back and use a village to restore their health, since I don't think we can re-recruit them, and they are so powerful. The enemy need a trebuchet to bring them down, but they don't have one, so we're just broadly fine. Since we don't really need to advance, we can slap down the Elder Shield as well to give ourselves a defensive advantage in our little spot here. And now we just wait. It's going to take a few turns for our flying units to make it across the map. The battle that went on here at the top doesn't necessarily matter, so I won't really talk about it. Basically, the enemy kept sending the odd unit out at us, and we just defeated them without anything particularly special or interesting happening, until finally we've got some guys in range to begin the attack on the enemy stronghold. However, that doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to actually begin the attack, because I had this idea in my head that I'll need 3 attacking units to bring it down. Because the stronghold can regen health and because it damages you when you attack it, I thought we need 3 units all together to do enough damage fast enough to not just die while we bring it down. Not quite sure why I believe this was the case, and I don't think it's true, but that's why I'm doing what I'm doing here. I'm just going to sit around and allow more units to catch up while we just keep stalling up at the top. No real problems taking down the enemy units as they come to attack us, just need to not lose Emeric, and we just about avoided that. Didn't expect this move from the enemy. They moved some of their flying things to attack my anti-flying things, and while we got the better of that fight, I had put them in range of the enemy under the assumption the AI wouldn't bother making such a disadvantageous attack, but then I always forget in this game, making an attack, even if it looks disadvantageous, is still a good idea a lot of the time, because damaging enemies, even at huge cost to yourself, can pay dividends later on, so it's hard to say. Anyway, that's just an aside. So I waited a couple of turns for another harpy to catch up, while the guys already here are just sitting around, not attacking the enemy's stronghold, because as I said, I was convinced that if I went with just 2, they would get ground down and be killed before we defeated the stronghold, and then the stronghold would regen its health. That said, when a third harpy arrived, I decided to start the attack this turn, even though that third one can't actually participate. I'm like, well, we're close enough now, so here we go. We can take advantage of harpies getting critical damage when over mountains to get our first attack to be a little bit more powerful. Aside from that, gonna have to just keep attacking. Gonna take a load of damage in return, and that damage doesn't reduce as the building's health goes down, like with normal units. And we'll just see what happens. As it happens, in the next turn, we attack a couple more times, and that is going to be enough to bring it down. And seeing how easy it was, I'm now like, I'm pretty sure we didn't need 3 harpies to do this. I think you could just about do it with 2, even though they'd go down to quite low health. And that would have allowed us to complete the mission at least 1 and probably 2 turns earlier using the exact same strategy. Now, in terms of story, defeating the enemy in this battle reveals the enemy Empress. She shows up and tells everyone that actually we're allied to Heavensong. Cherrystone and Heavensong are old allies, and our officers just didn't know about it. They apologise for the large misunderstanding, thank you very much. And now we agree that Heavensong will give us a load of troops and some ships with which to go and attack the undead on the other side of the continent. And they're also going to send the kid along, the son of the Empress, as an additional officer to watch over things, etc. So I guess that guy will be a hero for some future mission. Now for the ranking, we got an A in the end, pretty nice, and as I said, I think we could have got about 14 turns instead of 16, and I bet that's how you get an S rank, but doesn't matter. I think A and S are the same. Since you get 3 stars either way, it doesn't make any material difference. It's just for bragging rights, and I don't know if I need the bragging rights, but that's good enough for me. Let's move on. The next mission is a bit of an unexpected one. Basically, while we were walking to the south to go to Heavensong's ports and set off, we first have this quick conversation with Tenri about how sorry he is for those whole misunderstood battle things, and he better be. But the real surprise was the thing you can see in the background. We're currently being attacked by the Floren, and here's Sedge showing up to announce it. It's curious because while the in-game reason for the misunderstanding battles was that Heavensong thought we were aiding a Floren invasion, there actually was a Floren invasion happening just somewhere else, and here they are in the middle of Heavensong's territory, and now they want to kill us as a result of the grudge from our earlier genocide of their peoples, so now we have to battle with them. And this is a special stage, so it's not the usual rules. The map is divided into 2 halves, with Emeric standing on his own on one side, and our base is in the bottom left, and those 2 halves are completely cut off over land, so Emeric can't walk over to the left. What he can do though is go down towards the bottom right, where there are a load of neutral dragons hanging around. We can capture them and use them to try and hold off the Floren forces. So that's the plan, and on the left side just need to survive until such a time as the dragons can help us out. We've got a little base and the enemy don't have a base at all, so while it looks easy at first, the enemy just have tons of constantly respawning guys who will be swarming us. I moved up to engage the first few guys who came close to us, thought maybe we should head them off over here and try and contest this neutral village that we're currently fighting around. It went kind of hopefully at first, we took out a few units, but when the enemy turn comes around, it becomes clear that we're not going to be able to hold this position without a lot more stuff on our side. The enemy already have us locally outnumbered and more stuff spawning in close by, so we really can't hold that position on the other side of the river. We're going to have to just leg it to try and stay alive and fight near to our base where we can reinforce quickly and forego the money that village would have given us. The enemy capturing the village doesn't matter because they can't spend money, of course, in a stage like this. Although really that's not very much consolation because they're getting loads of units for free, quite a lot of them, and we can't really match them. It got to the point when it looked like I was going to have to just keep running away, but we are at the bottom of the map and we need to not lose our stronghold, so we have to hold at least somewhat in the area where we are already. What units we're going to use to do that holding, well, that's another question. I really wanted to have a ballista out so I could take down the enemy's flying things, but not going to be the case right now. Emeric does successfully reach the flight recruitment tower and captures it. That triggers this little scene where he asks the local dragons to go and destroy our enemies, and as it happens, they are going to be up for that. So we're going to get 3 free units of Emberwing dragons, the super powerful flying unit, even more powerful than the golem type units in that they can kill golems in one hit. And indeed we are being advised to do so right now. Those 2 golems that are coming after Emeric need to be dealt with. I was more worried though about going to the left. I wanted to go and reinforce as soon as possible, so I thought we'll start going that way with one of them. We'll kill this random sword unit on the way just to try out the attack on the dragons, and yep, kills swords in one hit. And as I said, it kills golems in one hit, so that's really overpowered for use on swords. There's even a little dialogue there that assumes your first move was to defeat the Gloom Giants because it mentions them, but anyway, we've really bucked the trend by going after the swords in a pointless move, but now I will take the giants down. I think sending both dragons to attack them was pointless here. I could have done it with one and then just had Emeric go and hide in the corner, and then the one I left behind would deal with everything there, and I could have 2 dragons already on the way to help Tenri on the left, but didn't think of that, clearly. So now we just have to stall for time a bit more and the dragons will make their way over to help. The problem is the enemy numbers are so vast that all we can do is trade. Every time I advance to attack the enemy and take out a unit, the stuff that I advance will just be counterattacked by a whole barrage of various things, and it won't be possible to actually survive, meaning we're constantly losing units and trading with the enemy. I apparently thought it would be fun to use our hero Koji to defend that bridge and stop the enemy from coming across, but as you might imagine, they just move forward and kill him with a spam of all sorts of different units right there. Not quite sure what I thought was going to happen. Guess I was hoping that he would just survive and buy us time to then sweep in this turn and win, but that didn't happen, so let's skip to somewhere roughly similar in our second attempt. I'm following my own advice this time. I'm only going to have one of the dragons stay behind to make sure Emeric doesn't die to those Gloom Giants. 2 of them will start making their way over to the left right away to aid in the main fight. Said fight was a bit more retreaty this time. I didn't really contest the ground to the north very much. I mostly ran forwards and then ran back as the enemy got close, just trying not to die so that I'd have a little bit more strength when the fighting actually starts. I'm also making the tactical decision here to have Koji stand in range of the enemies and just tank a few blows so we can regen that health, although that loss of my archers there to the enemy's alchemists was certainly not planned. That's just me not paying attention, and that sucks. That's so much money lost for the size of our economy right now that we just really didn't need a slip up like that. Look how much stuff is slowly coming towards us. We're going to get absolutely annihilated very soon. The 3rd dragon now starts making its way over. Emeric will take out that sword unit and will now just kind of stand there. Not much else we can do with him in the immediate future. Now time to look at this and just despair for a bit. But there is something to note among all the chaos here. Sedge is the target, not the rest of the enemy army, and he's somewhere near the top. So need to keep that in mind and see if we can get him into range of the dragons. I think that's really what this mission boils down to, because even with the dragons, it's going to be hard to stop all of this stuff coming at us before it just takes us out. Now I can make this balloon unit, which allows us to transport units over the river in the middle, so I could bring Emeric over, although we'll see I'm not actually going to use it for that. My first thought was, can I use it to take Koji away and put him on the other side of the map so he doesn't die? It doesn't really matter though, because the enemy can win by taking out your stronghold, so we do have to hold that area in the bottom left. A big issue we have is that there's one anti-air unit in the middle of the enemy block, so we're kind of zoned out of a lot of the enemy army right now. I also accidentally wasted a turn with my Emberwing by telling it to wait. I thought I'd be able to attack that flying thing in front of it, but no, they can't attack flying units, and I really should have realised that. So yeah, we've wasted a turn, although I am blocking the enemy's advance there, so that's something. It kind of forces the enemy to attack Koji this turn instead of going towards the stronghold, but that's not really any better, is it? Koji gets slammed and almost dies. We get away with it, pretty much only by virtue of the fact that he's standing on a high defense tile. Then he almost dies again when the enemy flying unit, their witches, use the Hex ability, which just damages everything around them. Somehow Koji survived, didn't really expect that, but now he's in huge trouble, he's on the verge of death, and there's just a huge wall of enemy units in front of him. Even running away isn't really enough right now because he's going to get swarmed again, he can't run that far. I'm immediately moving the balloon over, just leaving Emeric behind to perhaps try and get Koji out of this by putting him on the balloon and flying him away, so at least he doesn't die even if the stronghold's still in trouble. Two dragons are going around to the right, ready to attack Sedge in the future if the space opens up. As for our third dragon, I need to do a maneuver to keep it alive. The enemy's anti-air thing will just attack it this turn. However, by having the dragon clear out the alchemists in front of it and then sending my own alchemists into the middle of the enemy blob, they can cheaply take out those witches, meaning our dragon should be able to survive at least another turn. Does mean the alchemists are going to get traded for, they'll just be annihilated by the enemy, but I think it's worth it keeping our Ember Wings alive. Not much else we can do right now, but I thought there is one cheeky strategy we could try, and it's do stuff like this. Just surround our stronghold with trash, because the enemy will have to kill them in order to get to the stronghold. It could potentially buy an extra turn by making it take longer for the enemy's attacks to come in, even if we're definitely not defeating the enemy. I also did this distractionary last charge with these cav. They go in to render that Gloom Giant now nearly dead, and then they themselves will just sit in the middle of the blob and perhaps attract a few attacks, again keeping the enemy standing where they are and wasting attacks on things that aren't the things that make us lose the mission. Although these flying units weren't so distracted, they come down and both Koji and the stronghold take blows. Some archers immediately wipe out our alchemists. This attack is pretty much wasted actually taking out a village, but that does reduce our income, which we really need at this stage. Even recruiting like one unit of swords a turn will help us out because we can just sacrifice them in a grinder to buy time. The units around the stronghold start taking a pounding, but they don't die, so I guess things are working out as intended. Everything else is advancing, but the good news is that Sedge at the back there is kind of exposed. We can't quite attack him this turn, which is really annoying, but we can certainly move into a position where we can attack him next turn, so we do still have to survive, but then our chance to win will emerge. I take out that Gloom Giant just for no reason really. Our second dragon will go after the trebuchet on the road, because those two trebs on the road are really zoning us out of our own base right now. We need to do something to at least one of them so we don't just take a pounding, and that one will just go down straight away, getting the crit because it's on the road. Our guys near the stronghold will, well, for the most part just stand there. At least that's what I planned at first. I thought I could hire a new unit, but then I thought I'll save the money for healing Koji. I could even heal him up this turn by moving over here to reinforce, but I'm gonna save the money just in case we can get away with this. He's not like on low health, and next turn he'll be able to get into the balloon, which may keep him alive anyway. This sword unit moves up to recapture this village. That's just providing the enemy with another target, a nice distraction. Hopefully they'll waste some of their turn trying to decap the village again. This sword unit I'm going to do something a little bit stupid with. I decided to use it to attack the nearby archers. Those archers can crit hit both this sword and the pikes and clear a path to the stronghold. So I guess I thought I really want those archers to be dead because it will help us survive another turn. But that attack with the swords only does half damage, and then I ended up using the dragon to kill them anyway, which I could have done in the first place and kept the swords down there. So that was a waste. We don't need that sort of mistake in this clutch situation, to be sure. Time for another grueling enemy turn. We first take a blow onto Koji, but he's okay. Then there are more blows for the stronghold, which is now going down towards half health, looking a little bit dangerous here. There goes another one, but each time those flying units are being damaged, so they're getting weaker and weaker every time. There are some arrows for one of our dragons there, but it doesn't do that much damage. And that arch unit also could have got a crit on me if it shot before moving, but it moved and then shot, so we don't take too much damage. Elsewhere the attacks are still coming in, but one thing to note is that our dragon at the bottom is really choke pointing the enemy. They can't walk past it. So while I put it there by accident, that exact tile is a really good space to block the enemy with a unit that's hard to kill like a dragon, so I think that might actually be a pretty optimal place to have something just sit there. Anyway, now 2 of our dragons are in position to attack Sedge, who's exposed at the back there. So let's get started. We can do about 30% damage with each attack. So we can take him down to less than half health. We might take damage in the enemy turn, but hopefully we'll still have the power to finish him off next turn. We may even be able to use our 3rd dragon next turn, depending on the situation. For now, it will have to just attack the Gloom Giant next to it to reduce the power of the attacks coming down on the stronghold. Noting there that without its critical attack, it actually can't kill a Gloom Giant. I guess they're probably about the same strength in terms of attacking power. It's only the massive crit they get for attacking roads that lets them one-shot Gloom Giants. As for Koji, he's just going to stand down there, not getting into the balloon like I was sort of hinting I might. I'm going to use the balloon as a distraction. It's just there in the way now, and Koji is going to try and draw some attacks from the enemy. He does take 1, but unfortunately the other 2 flyers are still going after the stronghold, but now that they're weaker, it's less of a big deal. That Gloom Giant clears the path for more attacks to come in, and this flyer kills itself attacking the stronghold, taking it down to low health, but it is still alive. Various arch units go after our dragons, but still, they'll have the fighting power to continue on. You might note, by the way, that the enemy are attacking a stronghold with 2 flying units, which is the situation I was proposing in the previous battle. But in that battle we would have been able to do crit attacks on the stronghold because of the mountains as well. So while here I think it's demonstrated that 2 units actually can't take down a stronghold, in that situation I still stand by my claim that I could have got the S rank if I'd been paying attention and been a bit more aggressive in a twist. Anyway, now that we've made it to the next turn, as predicted we are able to just use our dragons to kill Sedge. That brings an end to this very edgy battle indeed. Sedge promises that he'll come back to fight us again sometime or something, so I guess there's going to be another annoying Sedge battle at some point before the end of the game. We've got that to look forward to. And here's the victory, and in a cheeky twist we actually pulled off an S rank as well, so apparently that was how you were supposed to do it, even though it felt like it was going pretty badly the entire time. Maybe it's meant to be like that. It's like that thing from Star Trek that I forget the name of, the Kobayamashi test or something. Anyway, so we've passed that test, and now we're able to walk down to the ports in the south. Although those ports are a stage, which is a hint to the fact that we are going to have to battle to actually get into the ships before we go to Felheim. Felheim's troops are already here, so we'll have to capture the fleet. And once we do that, it's actually going to introduce naval battles as a new fun mechanic, so we should be able to see both this battle and the first naval battle in the next part.